want to talk about how the Bible is teaching meditation. It is telling you how to go within, and that is what the spiritual journey really is about. And I made a video on my TikTok that went a little bit viral, if I do say so myself. But anyways, I was just talking about how the spiritual journey and awakening is not rainbows and butterflies and all about crystals, right? That is the bare minimum of what it's about. And so many people pretend to be so woke, or whatever the term you want to use, spiritually awake, aware, whatever, and they have not done any inner work. They don't know half of what spirituality is about. It's all pretending and it's all fake. And I want to just highlight the fact that because somebody looks the part, because somebody's wearing a crystal, because somebody drinks tea or whatever, does not mean that they know half of what this is about. And what it really is it's going within, going into meditation, going through those dark night of the soul moments. And when I say moments, you'll have so many of them. I'm only 8 years in, and I've had so many moments that they call dark night of the soul moments that lasted years, months, you guys, where I was in a dark place. And the reason for that is because, first off, you learn that everything in the world that you've been taught is a lie. You have to unlearn everything. But more than that, you learn that who you are is not who you thought you were. You realize that so much in life that you don't like about your reality is self-inflicted. You learn that the person you are on the inside is not good. There is so much dark side of who we are. And the thing is to really go into that and to try to look at why it's there. So whether that's trauma, right? And trauma comes from the word wound, which it's just Latin for wound. And it's really about healing those parts of you that are unhealed, because whether you want to believe it or not, that stuff sticks with you. It goes into your parasympathetic nervous system, your nervous system. And that is why you get triggered in certain moments. But it really is, spirituality really is about going within. And I don't know how to word that any other way. And you can try to skip that phase all you want to, but until you do that inner work and go into meditation, you will always stay stuck at that level of spirituality and never get to this side and never understand the stuff that I'm gonna go over today. So before we start, a few things to note just to even understand what I'm going to be talking about, because you're just like, what, slow down. But if you're like me and you like to take notes, anytime the Bible is talking about the right or east, right, because east is on the right side, it's talking about the right hemisphere of the brain. When it's talking about 12, it's talking about the 12 zodiacs, the 12 cranial nerves. When it's talking about 7, which is mentioned over 300 times, it's talking about the 7 chakras, the 7 luminary planets. And, back in the day, in the Greek period, when astrology became huge, they called the 7 luminary planets 7 wandering stars. And it's always been the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. And that is because those are the planets that we can physically see with our eyes. And, I think, when you get into this stuff and you realize that everything we've been told is a lie, you'll understand that the planets are not what we think. They're more like frequencies. And you can basically look at us being stationary and the planets moving around us. And that is why they always have an effect on us, because it's a frequency getting shot out basically through a hole that has an effect on our life. As above, so below. That is why you have 7 this, 7 in the body, 7 above, 12 in the body, 12 above. Anything we reference is going to have a part in your body and a part in the sky, right? Man is the image of God. Man is, everything is connected, and you can see that all throughout Da Vinci's work. Okay, so just to get into this stuff, now that we know a little bit about it, is, when we talk about things like Solomon's temple, for instance, it is talking about you and I. And there's even a verse in Acts that talks about how God dwells in the house that is not made by hands. Okay, so it is inside the body. And, Solomon, when we break this down, we understand that soul, man, pineal, it is the left part of the brain. When we talk about moon, pituitary, female, and you can basically look at this as the spiritual side and the more material matter side of who we are. And the key is you want to learn to merge the two, right? You'll hear people a lot of times talk about, just spirituality and this, but it is really about merging the two, right? Because you have to remember, we come here for a reason. It is not to become obsessed with material things, but it is how to merge your ego to be aligned with who you are. Okay, so not to be egotistical, but to align and to become more spiritual so that your everyday life is connected and intertwined with the true nature of who you are. And when we come here, you're either learning or teaching something. That is just what we are here to do at Earth. Earth is a school of lessons. It is nothing other than that. So whether it's relationships, something happens every day in your life. It is all about learning and teaching. And so I hope that you find what you're here to do. I'm so happy that I found what I'm here to do, which is to, use my own way of thinking and just my own journey to hopefully resonate with other people that are going through the same thing. Okay, so let's just get into it. So back on the Solomon's Temple thing, when we get back into the pituitary and the pineal gland, it's so important. These two things are very important. One produces melatonin and the other one produces something. Okay, but this is, when you hear the story of the milk and honey in the Bible, it's talking about your pituitary and your pineal gland produces this oil or seed, if you will, every single month. And this is symbolic for the sun and the moon. When the moon is passing through your zodiac sign, okay, and this is just scientific, you can look this up. For instance, I'm a Sagittarius. When you look up right now, when will the moon transit and enter into Sagittarius, it'll tell you it sits there for 2.5 days. Every sign, it will sit there for 2.5 days, 3 days. And when the moon does transit is in your zodiac sign, your pituitary and your pineal gland will produce an oil that is produced, and it goes down your spine, and it is born in your solar plexus chakra. That is where we get the story of Virgin Mary, right? Because Virgin is in Virgo. The Virgin Mary is in Virgo. It is in your belly. It is born in your belly. And when we are in a fasted state for 3 days, right? Because that is how long the moon is sitting there. You need to be refraining from sex. You need to be refraining from acidic food, because as soon as you eat these things or surround yourself around low vibrational stuff, it kills that oil. It's not allowed to rise back up. And that is what Jacob's ladder is. And that is what Jordan's river is. And we're going to get into that in a second. But yeah, when you are in a fasted state, that oil can rise back up. And when the Bible is talking about salt, oil, anything, it is talking about that chrism oil, that sacred oil. And back in the day, and the Egyptians knew this is how they were able to live for longer, because that is what the youth is. That is where youth comes from, that oil. And just to take it into the story of Jacob when he wrestles the angel. So Jacob, in Genesis 28:10-19, Jacob dreams he sees the ladder. And 32:22, Jacob wrestles the angel. And what happens is he lays his head on a rock. The rock is symbolic for your sacrum, the 5-fused bone, your sacrum bone. And that is where the oil is produced. And when he has this dream, he has a dream of Jacob's ladder. It's symbolic for your 33 vertebrae. And when he goes up to when he's climbing the ladder, he calls the place he sees pineal, which is symbolic for your pineal gland, right? Your pineal gland is where you get enlightened. There's a verse in the Bible that talks about, let thy eye be single and the whole body be filled with light, right? Thy eye be single. Don't use your 2 eyes when you can go into meditation and truly open up that pineal gland. And right, when you can have this oil be produced every single month to ignite that pineal gland, this is when you reach enlightenment. And, I thought that was really interesting to go over just before we get into the other stuff. And, another thing that's really interesting, and when you start to get into this stuff, guys, I promise you, you can take it into everything. Any fairy tale we've ever been told, Snow White and the 7 dwarfs, right? When it's talking about the 7 dwarfs, it's talking about the 7 chakras, right? You had Grumpy, your root chakra. You had Wise, which is your crown chakra. It's all talking about the same thing. Any fairy tale we've ever been told, the folklore, anything like that. And most of these movies that we watch are symbolic for this as well. So when we talk about the Matrix, right? In the story of the Matrix, his name was Neo. The reason his name was Neo is because back in the day, in like 1960, you had McLean, who said that the brain is made of 3 parts. You had the limbic, which is the emotional, the reptilian, which is where most of us use our brain, which is the instinctual part, the animalistic part of who we are. And then you have the neocortex, which is higher levels of thinking. And that is where you get the name Neo, right? Because he uses his higher level thinking mind. And I thought that that was super cool. And when I mean you can take this stuff into everything and know that that's what it's talking about, it's so true. Okay, so, just to get on the number 7 for a bit, when the Bible, there's so many things that it talks about: the 7 trumpets, the 7 churches, the 7 priests, the 7 seals, in the story of Jericho. And I love this story. So what this is symbolic of, Jericho is the right hemisphere of your brain. And there is a wall separating you from reaching the right hemisphere of your brain. And what happens is he instructs Joshua to march around, and all of them to march around 7 times. Why do they have to march around 7 times? Because it's symbolic for your 7 chakras. You have to open up your 7 chakras in order to get that kundalini energy to go from the root chakra to the crown chakra, to reach enlightenment, to have this kundalini experience. And chakra is just, it's Latin for disc, and it basically moves in this direction. So until you have those chakras spinning and opening, you can't reach this what they call enlightenment. And in the story, he tells them to shout once they've marched around 7 times. And the word shout is symbolic for your pineal gland. So when you march around 7 times and they shout, it knocks down Jericho's wall, and it knocks down that wall, separating you from Jericho, from the right hemisphere of your brain, from the left part to the right part. Okay, same thing with the story of Moses crossing the Red Sea. This is symbolic as well for left to the right hemisphere of your brain. Okay, that's basically what it's saying. And to go deeper into it, it's also talking about how, when you get on this spiritual journey, you want to go back so bad. And, you start to lose all of your friends. You start to lose your family. Everybody at this point is looking at you like you're crazy, because you're getting into stuff that, we're not taught, that they don't want us to know. And so there's literally even a part in the story where they start to ask Moses, they're like, why did you take us here? Take us back. We don't want to be here anymore, when they camp. And that is telling you, that is basically symbolic for when you go back to religion. So many people turn back to religion and back to their old life because what's in front of them seems so scary. But that story is telling you that the only way to silence those thoughts that you're having, those low vibrational thoughts about, should I go back, or this isn't right, I miss everything and everyone. The only way to shut all that up is to go into meditation, right? Silence, go into silence. And once you learn that meditation is the key, you will always, that sea opens up. You will always be able to enter into, to cross the sea, to go into the right hemisphere of the brain. And that is only through meditation. Okay, so just right there, we can already see that I'm already starting to repeat myself, right? And all of these stories are saying that. And I find it so cool, though, that once you can get into this stuff, you see this stuff. And, just to piggyback off of the story of Moses crossing the Red Sea, when he is instructed to build, not Moses, but I think it's Jacob or whoever, when they were instructed to build the Ark of Covenant, okay, what it is talking about is he literally tells them, right, 2 cherubims that are the same size. What's that talking about as well? The left and the right hemisphere of the brain. It's literally talking about, and the Ark of Covenant is symbolic for your callosum. Okay, so you have a callosum which connects the left and right hemisphere. And the callosum is basically, it is a thin, what is it? It is like a thin layer of fibers that basically gives communication from the left part to the right part. So it sends communication through the callosum and it connects the 2. And it's so interesting to me, right? So the Ark of Covenant is your callosum. The 2 cherubims that sit in the Ark of Covenant is your left and right hemisphere. And that is all that that's talking about, right? And In Da Vinci's work, which I already have a video on this as well, the story of Adam, not the story of Adam, the photo of the creation of Adam, you see it. You see the brain. You see that Jesus is inside of there with the 12 people around. That's your 12 cranial nerves. It's always talking about the brain, the body. Just to take it into how the Bible is also talking about the 5 senses as well. David and Goliath. David, a small guy, beat a giant called Goliath with a rock and a sling. David takes 5 rocks before he battles Goliath. He strikes Goliath between the eyes with the rock and slays the giant. David is the divine nature of man. Goliath represents the ego. David overcomes the 5 senses via meditation, activates the third eye, the pineal gland, to overcome your ego or Goliath. Okay, and the same thing when Jesus was crucified on the cross. Okay, they put 5 nails in him. Whoever wrote this, I must say, very creative and smart. Okay, I'm not here to say that the Bible is not the greatest book ever. It is, as long as you know how to read it for this stuff, right? But them putting 5 nails is just so creative to me. Okay, so what happens is he overcomes his 5 senses. And while he was nailed to the cross, he says, "Woman, do not touch me, for I have not yet ascended to my Father." It's just telling you to control your sexual desire. Surrender the left part of your brain and move to the right. The right hand of God, promised land, is the east. Always the east, right? Another thing that I want to mention real quick is that the word salvation means to just wake up. Okay, so the Holy Land is the body. The Jordan River is the spinal cord. Jesus gets baptized at the age of 30 and crucified at the age of 33. So what happens is, when I was talking about the oil earlier, what happens is when it rises back up, when it is able to, when you allow it to, it crosses the vagus nerve, and this is where the crucifixion happens. And you go from the lower chakras to the higher chakras, the lower level thinking to higher level thinking. And that is what that's talking about. That is what Jordan's River is. And, Jesus was he was in the cave. And why was he in there for 3 days? Because the moon sits in your zodiac sign for 3 days. It is telling you that in order to, in order to allow this oil to rise, in order to have this crucifixion happen, we have to go into meditation. We have to go into a fasted state, okay, into a dark place and go meditate. The Bible talks about how to go into the closet and pray. It's telling you to go in there and meditate, close the door. A really beautiful story that I love in the Bible is the story of the fig tree. And I was telling my sister about this the other day, but the reason they use the fig tree and not anything else is because, when you go into spirituality and you start getting that pull to start getting into this stuff, you understand that in spirituality, what I was talking about earlier, you have to go within. And the cool thing is that the fig is the only thing that blossoms from the inside out. Most flowers and plants blossom from the outside in. And I find that so beautiful that it really does blossom within. And that is the same thing for spirituality. You have to go within and then you start to blossom, right? You start to see your outer world change before your eyes. And I love that story. And I think that it is so beautifully written. Just along with all of these stories, I think that they're all so well written. And I give it up to whoever wrote this. Real quick, because I know I'm all over the place and I'm just sorry. It's just when I think about a story, I'm like, oh yeah, talk about that one. But it really is true that once you understand what I'm talking about and you get this and you get the main concepts, it doesn't matter when you go to read this after this, the Bible, you will just look at it completely different and have a truly different understanding. Okay, so the story of the flooding, okay, Noah's Ark, this one to me is so interesting. So, when he instructs him to bring the animals on, he instructs him to bring 2 of every land-dwelling animal with the breath of life onto the ark, plus 7 pairs of clean animals and flying creatures. So it's funny to me, there you see the number 7 once again. That's talking about your 7 chakras. And what is the other thing talking about? Why does he say bring 2 of every kind? It's talking about the duality, the good, the evil, heaven and hell, the devil, the God, however you look at it, black, white, the yin, yang, it is the duality of life. That is within all of us. That is not separate. And I have so many religious people that inbox me on my TikTok and try to argue with me, and it's like, you have the devil in you and all these things, and it's like, and so do you. But just by your comments and what you're saying, I can see that. It's when you have negative thoughts. It is all these things because we have a shadow side. You can't have a shadow without a light, and you can't, right? They just go in hand with each other. We all have this duality within us, and that is why he tells him, bring 2 of every kind and 7 clean, right? Because your chakras, right? That's the clean animals he's talking about. And when you get deeper into the stuff, you understand that it's talking about, it just gets into the different numbers, and it starts to get into etymology, and 9 is the number of consciousness, and so I won't get into that part, but I thought it was interesting to note the part about the duality and the 7 once again. And yeah, I really hope, I don't really want to get into more stories because I'm kind of all over the place, and I want to save some for another video, but I truly hope that I made sense when I was talking about a lot of this stuff, and I hope that you learn something from this, and I hope that you go read the Bible and look at it with a different perspective, because perspective is really everything in this life. You can either look at one thing one way or look at it this way. And I will say that ever since I started to learn this stuff, this doesn't make you this terrible person. I don't want you to get scared and think that when you start to read the Bible differently. Don't think, oh, I'm automatically going to hell, or I'm somehow now in a cult, or, a cult literally just means, in Latin, it means hidden knowledge. And that is the very thing. These people who run our world, they learn this stuff. They teach their families this stuff. They know this hidden secret knowledge, and they don't want us to know this, right? Because that is how they keep us on the wheel of karma. By you not doing what you're supposed to do, by you not learning who we truly are, they constantly divide us by race, by religion, by what party are you, and that is the key. That is what they want to do. And they've done so many studies on consciousness and how when you have so many people feeling a certain way and their emotions are tied with that, right? Because everything is frequency. When people are in a low, when they're thinking negatively and they're like, oh my God, all these disasters and all this thing, that is what energy harvesting is, okay? They want us to be thinking like that because what we think controls our reality, right? And I love this topic, and I love talking about consciousness. It's what I'm going to school for, to be a psychologist. And I've just written multiple papers already on how consciousness creates our reality and the different studies that have gone along with it. But you have to remember that we are much more powerful than what we've ever been told. And getting into this stuff truly does help you, because I'm one of those people that I need to see it. I need to feel it. I need to understand it myself. I can never just listen to what somebody's saying. So when I first started hearing this stuff, I was like, such bullshit, right? You're just like, shut up. This sounds so crazy. But then when I just kept getting into it and going deeper and deeper and deeper, it will eventually make sense to you, okay? So keep with it. And, if you're on your journey, I say this often, I truly hope that you are starting to be in a place where you are learning who you are. And, I know that it can be dark and hard at times. Trust me, you will lose so many people. But that is because, like we were talking about frequency, when you're surrounded by people that are on a low frequency and not believing these things you're believing, when you're ascending and becoming, just higher and higher and on a different frequency, your friends are here, your family's here, and you're starting to become here. So what's either going to happen is you're going to go back down to their level, which some people do, or they have to come up to here. And I doubt that they're going to come up to you, right? Because they're not ready to, and not everybody's meant to. So you do have to get rid of people. You have to lose so many people on this journey. But trust me that there are so many more people to come and to meet you on your path once you do that work, because a lot of this is meant for us to do on our own. I had to learn that. It was very hard for me to take those 2-3 years by myself and to just put my head into this stuff and start learning and meditating. But when I say the other side of that is so beautiful, and I've said it before, I truly mean it. So I hope that you really enjoyed today's video. If you aren't already, follow my TikTok. If it doesn't get banned, which I think that's a whole political stunt, right? They want to act like Trump's the good guy, come and save the day. Even though they're all working together, y'all have to remember, the world is a stage. We literally are living in a Truman Show. and you can't believe everything you see. Okay, so I hope that that's a political stunt, and if it is, make sure you follow me over there, Ashley Eckerly _ which, you know, they did permanently ban me. Okay, so understand that the stuff I'm speaking on must be some true stuff. I'm almost at 9,000 followers, and once I get to 10,000, I start getting paid from that. Hello. And how dare they try to come in between that. So yeah, I really enjoy talking about this stuff, and I hope you guys enjoy listening to it just as much. And yeah, the link tree is in my bio now for all of my social media and stuff, so that'll be easier for you to go click. And yeah, I hope you'll have a great week.